Alright guys, I wanted to preface this video here and explain to you a little bit where this is coming from, because I've done things like this before, but I've also learned about the game more than I did back when I did the Rig No Ankle saga. To me now, when I see players transposed, it's not very impressive, and I'll tell you why. This game in Madden doesn't understand who these players are, and it's a big reason why ability-based systems I feel are better than numerical ratings. Essentially what the game is doing when you see Peyton Manning at cornerback or safety or defensive lineman, it's simply looking at the player's numerical ratings and applying them in that role. The game doesn't understand to say, wait a second, this is Peyton Manning, he can't play cornerback or he can't play defensive tackle. It just simply knows to adjust his ratings as such as how that player would play out. And to me, one of the big problems is I don't think any of us have any baseline as to how Peyton Manning would play cornerback or play defensive tackle, or how would a punter be an offensive lineman. I mean, these are still physical athletes. The change should be in the technique. And things that Madden can't change is player technique. It is something that we've seen all pro football change from player to player based on attributes, but not in Madden. So the experiment here isn't to show you players transposed from one side of the field to the other. The experiment is to create a player, to seek a desired outcome, and then the game not be able to replicate that. So what I've got here is a player called Nate Hardtostop, and I've adjusted his toughness to 12, his power move to 12, his stiff arm, carry, strength, all 12, and made him 160 pounds. 38 overall. So in theory, you have a player that shouldn't have very good trucking, shouldn't have very good stiff arms, and should have a very hard time moving the pile in terms of pushing players forward, things along those lines. Technique should be very bad, fundamental running should be very poor, and certainly he should have no problems being pushed back by just about any defender on the field. So when you've created a player like this and you see the game, in spite of what you've done, still create a solid running force out of this player, to me it's disheartening, because it shows again the ratings don't matter, but in a much more true and realistic form, because again I've tried to create a player that's poor and the game refuses to do that. So here's Nate Hardtostop. I've chosen the Bears defense in both of these examples because I feel they're very consistent. You're going to see broken tackles on multiple levels of the defense on this play, starting with number 54 Brian Urlacher, advancing to number 24 Al Afalava, and finishing with number 91 Tommy Harris. So a defensive tackle, a safety, and a linebacker all essentially get ran through on a tackle attempt on Nate Hardtostop, a player that, based on his attributes, should not be doing this, but because this game is such a poor simulation, still can. A second example of an off-tackle run, you're going to see very similar results. We're going to start off with Lance Briggs, number 55, coming in on a missed tackle again, Al Afalava, and finally closing out with Anthony Adams. Again, every level of the defense there misses a tackle on a player that fundamentally should not have these abilities based on the attributes he's been given. You see, looking at again at speed, very choppy, very animated based gameplay that we consistently see out of this franchise. To me, the disheartening part again is I've went out and I've created a player intentionally weak to get a desired effect. And if a player cannot be simulated on the weak scale, then how can a player be simulated on a strong scale? So when this player isn't able to play to his weak abilities, not fumbling the ball, for example, trucking through people, strong feet, a good presence as a runner, when I increase those abilities and I try to make, let's say, Adrian Peterson or Peyton Hillis, how does the game properly replicate that based on those strengths if it can't even properly replicate it when they're not present? So to me, another example of extremely poor simulation and very bad programming out of Madden, which ultimately to me makes it a game not worth your buy and really not worth playing, because what we're not seeing is the simulation aspect of this sport that they have consistently told us would be put into this product.